Pray tell.
Good morning, pray tell everyone, what's up? I'm just gonna hang out today. I'm just going to want to wish everyone happy Thanksgiving and happy Black Friday. Now, from what I understand, the crowds weren't even that great out there this year. I've seen a ton of news articles talking about how business is down, and but also how I've seen some videos where people are talking about companies just kind of overlaying the a big giant kind of Black Friday sticker. I just want to check my feed here. Big giant Black Friday sticker over top the old price, and it was the exact same price. So, I mean, that's not really cool. It's not really cool. And just, a long time ago, it used to be the case that people would wake up and, the evening before or the wee hours of the morning before, people would go to a store and just they'd hang out, they'd make an event of it. They'd have their still being full from their Thanksgiving dinner. And what would happen is people would just kind of hang out, they get together and they'd be all super excited about the Black Friday deals. They would travel to different cities. They would get together with friends and family, get a hotel room. If you had a big box store in your town, I guess you in some other town you drive to that store. Maybe they're giving away huge television sets and or some other deal of some kind. The first 500 people in line would kind of show up and you get to you'd get a prize by being the first in line. So it was actually exhausting, exhilarating, but it was kind of a fun, exciting time. And of course, it'll be the lead, be the kickoff of Christmas season. Now it doesn't seem to be that way at all. A lot of people, that was brick and mortar time. That was a time when you would physically need to go somewhere to get some kind of deal, and it was a different time. It was decades ago, really, and the Mall of America. A lot of these places, they'd make headlines and news. There'd be people crushing themselves to death to kind of get get a big screen TV or something. So actually, so times have changed, right? So now a lot of people are just they shop online and they get what they need, and it's usually a pretty good price, and that's that. So I don't know what's happening in your neighborhood at all, but it's just not the same. Like the magic is gone. The magic is just not there. And of course, questions about the economy still surround us. So people are concerned. People don't have the same spending power necessarily. And of course, I talk back and forth about Canada and the United States. Canada is not doing too well at all. Lots of people have been laid off, just like in the United States. But overall, I'm not sure if people are aware of this, that the average American, regardless of what's going on in their life, for better or for worse, and compared to the average Canadian, the Canadians are just 2/3 of the GDP of the average on a per capita basis compared to an average American. So it gives you an idea of the real spending power. We know, there are plenty of videos and news stories talking about the decline of people visiting, cities like Las Vegas, right? Las Vegas is one of those cities where if you've got a lot of extra money, if you've got some disposable cash, you can kind of go there. You don't feel too bad about it. Gambling, for the most part, is going to be a losing endeavor for whoever engages in it. And so, they kind of use that as a metric for the rest of the country. So when spending is down, when visits are down, when you're paying $17 for a Coke somewhere, when breakfast costs you $30 or $40 for one person, there are instances, you can find them, people paying just astronomical amounts. Spending $300 for dinner, that used to be a really nice dinner, and I think you can do that without blinking of an eye right now in Vegas. And that's just par for the course. Now, there's this theory about, if if the corporations can actually generate the same type of revenue by just having the high roller types spend money on the exorbitant amount of fees and costs, then you kind of don't need the lower, what they will call lower quality gambler or lower quality visitor. And so they can do without that. And if you think about it just on a spreadsheet and just in terms of an economics kind of perspective, and I mean, it makes sense just from a dollar value, right? If I can get more money out of less people, then I don't need to market to so many people, or if I can get a lot of people at a slightly lower amount of revenue, then that you can get the same amount of money. It's all about that. So there's speculation that there's a bit of that going on. There are a lot of wealthy people, regardless of what's going on in your personal life or in your community. There are a lot of rich people out there. A lot of people just spending money and millions and millions of them. So if they can squeeze a bit more money out of them, then why not? And, if you're into things like, cruising, cruising used to be kind of, a thing that, people would be able to do, and, they'd save up all year long, maybe a couple years, and they go on a cruise, and, they would have this amazing time and, an amazing, decadent kind of experience on the cruise, where you have this unlimited food supply, and you're buying a drink packages, and, you have, just, it's a time that you planned for and you did not take for granted. But it's not the same anymore. Since the pandemic, prices have gone up. I remember seeing videos immediately after the pandemic and just right before the pandemic when they were kind of gearing back up. You'd find people the services weren't as good generally speaking in like hotel and industry. And if you think of cruising as a kind of a hotel, it's a floating hotel kind of industry, then that's it's kind of a parallel in that regard. But prices started increasing, and they took away services, and so prices are exorbitant now. And but interesting, paradoxically, even they have these huge mega ships which are costly, and these things are sold out for 3 and 4 night party cruises in the Caribbean, and it's fascinating that people are still spending this kind of money when really judging by the state of the economies in Canada and the United States, people really can't afford to be doing that. But these huge cruise ships are enticing, and for some reason, people feel entitled to have that kind of experience. And I guess they're kind of doing it, but for how long? How long can they keep this up? I have no idea. But anyway, here we are today. I'm just going to doom scroll a little bit on my X handle. And again, I have no idea what's going to happen. If I see something interesting, maybe I'll tweet and reply to something. And if any of you want to comment, then please go ahead. And again, I know everything's limited here. I'm kind of live streaming from here and going to YouTube and to X. So we'll see how that works out. Sometimes it's not interesting. Sometimes it can be interesting depending on what we see. What I have on the screen right now is it's actually a post from, well, actually it's a quote tweet from Elon Musk. And all right, he's talking about, he mentions the fact that the woke mind virus, right, is kind of like reached its end. And here we have on screen just some graphs here where we're seeing search terms, yearly mentions of prejudice in popular U.S. news media outlets. Of course, this is by, I guess, 4 major American news outlets, and we have the graphs showing the development of an increase in those search terms over time, going back from 1970, which I don't think most of us had internet in 1970. You're probably running around or didn't even exist at that point. But what you see here, and if you've been around the last 10 or 15 years, you've seen this super matches what's going on in society, right? You see all these search terms for, racism, racist, sexism, sexist, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, Islam. Apparently, we were very phobic, right? We were very afraid of something, anti-Semitic. I don't know. I mean, it's still people are going to be researching this for a long time to find out what's going on. Elon says it was a woke mind virus, and something happened socially, and you probably you saw it. you were there, maybe you participated in it, maybe you contribute in it, maybe you started using these terms that you didn't use before, and suddenly something happened in your neighborhood, in your community, in your school, in your academic setting, and your job, and all of a sudden we're super concerned, and people are just all of a sudden a switch flicked, and like, oh, there's tons of racists, everyone's sexist, man bad, um, we're and you see this exemplified in the search terms that are here. But one thing, if you're a little bit optimistic, perhaps, and if this affected you and you think this was detrimental to society, you think it was wrong, you think it was some kind of people were under some kind of spell of some kind, what you're seeing here is looks like there's a bit of a downturn. If we're using the search terms or references in media outlets, there's a downturn here. So these are not search terms; these are references in media outlets, and so they're either just like, is this just still under the surface? Are they just not talking about it, or is there no interest? Is this a reflection of society? What's going on in society, right? Um, and so a lot of what's happening in society often gets taken up into what's published. I mean, there's sometimes an opposite relationship here, right? Sometimes if it's manufactured, and maybe this could have been manufactured. If this is referenced in terms of a media outlets, if you think of media outlets as being a kind of propagandist aspect, are they reporting on something as an effect of what they see, or are they actually creating something and reporting on something that they want to amplify? And everyone probably has their opinion on that. But anyway, in terms of Elon Musk, he just said this is a result of the woke mind virus kind of being overturned, and we're coming to a new, I guess, era here. And you see all these, the Wall Street Journal, L.A. Times, Washington Post, New York Times. There's a definite decline in these references to all of these terms, and I know, I'm done hearing about it. So I don't know about you, but if it's over, regardless of the reason, I'm kind of cool with that. And so anyway, we're going to continue the doom scroll here. So here we go. I'm going to go to my following tab, check it out. All right. Everyone's kind of busy on a Sunday morning. All right. Hope everyone's not too. Hope you didn't gain so much weight in the last few days. Save some for Christmas. You got still a lot more turkey or ham to eat in next month. Tom McDonald posting something. It was Donald Trump, and I guess that's with his grandchild. All right, here's a video of apparently an Afghan national who shot at police during a traffic stop this week, and apparently saying effing dumb white people before shooting the police. Not cool. Any thoughts on that? Have you had enough? Let me see here. Dom Luker replied all facts. Let's see what he replied all facts to. All right. Crooked Joe Biden, Mayorkas, and so-called border czar Kamala Harris really screwed our country by letting anyone and everyone come in totally unchecked and unvetted. So if you're American, you probably have a strong kind of opinion on that. And, it's fascinating because America was founded, by immigrants, and but that was in a different time. People, I think, appreciated what America was and what it does. And the idea is a profoundly philosophical one, that you can come to America and you can do anything. You can be anything you want to, and the opportunity is there for you. And the reason behind that is it's about objectivity. It's not about literally being anything in a philosophical sense. You're adhering to a set of values which then permit you to do anything and be anything, while you respect the rules of law and the social construct that exists in America. That's the whole point. And and that's the that's so you had people, and you'll notice in the preamble to the what is it the about your you're poor and you're starving. We'll kind of accept you in America, and it speaks to some a certain kind of desperation, and the desperation was that the right way to live did not exist in another society. The right way to live does not exist anywhere else, and so America was kind of a safe haven for objectivity in a way and individualism. And so if you had a work ethic and if you cared, then you could do just as a properly integrated person in the world should be able to do. You can accomplish something and you can be something, and it's a different story now. People coming here, they are not actually from nations that are necessarily that require refugee status. They're, you're talking about a century more than a century removed from that kind of, and more 2 centuries removed from that kind of attitude. People that are coming in are not poor in any real sense. They have modern devices on them. They are very well clothed. They do have money from their own states. So something else is afoot. What's the reason? It's kind of disturbing and it's kind of alarming because that original way of life in America and does not it's not really represented in today's society. Even for the Americans that were have been around for generations and generations, they they have the kind of there is just a huge entitlement, a huge privileged idea, and you could tell when you if you ever visited any of these areas. Of course, I have visited many American cities. I've been there a lot, and you it's kind of exuding from who they are as people. Sometimes it's the 1776 idea of America that comes out, but often it's just this. It is an unearned privilege that comes out for some people, and it's there's something broken with some of the folks, not everybody, and it's just it doesn't make any sense because if you saw that behavior kind of dripping as a philosophy, it's just so dirty and wretched and has no way of sustaining itself. There's not no net positive in a lot of different ways. So a lot of the people that are coming to America have that other kind of sense of what it means to be an American. It is more of an entitled attitude. It's more of a I'm going to get whatever I can get instead of just I'm going to be what I can be. And so that's it's a little disturbing and a little alarming, and people should be, I think, concerned about it. So let's continue the doom scroll. Happy Thanksgiving, Amuse. There's Planet of Memes with the average daily average screen time. That is insane. Like almost 14 hours. Do you guys scroll that much? Are you online that much? These professional or full time X folks, they are on. I mean, I know in the last couple of days, I'm on there all the time, unnecessarily. And if you're in the chat now for some reason, I know I see there's 2 people here. If you could just say hello so that I know that you can hear me, hey, that would be great. You don't have to interact with me, but it'd be cool to know that you're legit out there. All right, Debbie Bloodclot here. Okay, and here's I guess a picture of a dangerous kind of someone driving like a rig, an 18-wheeler kind of thing, and there's some dangerous driving going on. Oh, geez, pulled out right into the street. So what happens is a lot in Canada and in the United States right now. There are a lot of people who are truck drivers, and they are actually immigrants, and so some of them cannot actually even read the road signs. I don't know how they get their license. And many of them are Indian, just happen to be Indian, and they could be nice people. I have no idea, and but they're here, and it's common for them to make news in terms of being part of accidents. If you not can't read the signs in English, then how can you pass a test, and then how could you be a conscientious driver on the road? I know sometimes there were, I I believe there were cases of, people taking road tests for the not for the actual person that was going to be licensed technically, because they knew how to do it and they would just do it. And from what I understand, there's actually a bit of an industry in terms of that happening in some areas. So I've seen that in Canada and in the United States. I know in the States right now, I think Trump's kind of putting his foot down and on some of the requirements right, from the Department of Transportation, making sure that I think they even do like I think they were going to do roadside English tests. And so I'm not sure how that's working out right now. Right. So here's a video. Hodge twins kind of quote tweeted this here, and it's a story by let me see. I think Amuse is the original poster here. All right. So again, this is in the UK, and again, I don't know if you're aware of what's going on in the UK, but things are falling apart in a lot of respects. The England is not really England anymore. The values that once represented civilization are no longer in play as much. There is a lot of people think two-tier policing with regard to crimes. A lot of people who are UK born, English born, they're not getting the same treatment. They're being prosecuted for mundane, what we perceive as being very trivial kind of crimes and things that aren't even actually technically crimes. They're being what amounts to harassed. And some people say that the process is the punishment, right? So you'll tweet something, and with all of the things going on in the world, they will find time to actually have officers visit your house for an X post that kind of supposedly hurts somebody's feelings. Because in the UK, you can actually, say that this hurt my feelings, and post and complain to the authorities, and someone will come to your house. So here we are in the UK, according to Amuse. A Brit posted a photo of himself holding a shotgun, and while he's on holiday in Florida. Okay, this is in Florida. It's the picture's in Florida, and has nothing to do with the UK, except the person happened to be British. And I don't know if you know this, if you don't have the right to kind of carry guns where you are, if you don't, or if you have a limited usage in terms of where you live. A lot of people, and I've done this myself, I've gone to Nevada, and I guess in this case it's in Florida. I don't know all of the details, but you can go to a range and actually it doesn't matter. You don't need to even need to have a license. You're just with someone who's licensed, and they'll stand with you. They'll help you load the gun, and you can go to a range and actually just shoot some targets. It's actually quite interesting. So if that's kind of if you perceive that as some kind of thrill or some aspect that you haven't actually even participated in, you could actually go ahead and participate in that kind of thing. And so, and again, I don't know if that's the case for this, but I know in Britain, you can't walk around with a gun. You can't, I don't think you can own a gun. It's well known. Even the police have the bobbies. They have batons more than anything else. I think only select few are able to actually carry a weapon. So the public is disarmed. So here, a Brit posted a photo of himself holding a shotgun while on holiday. Now, when he returned home, the UK police actually arrested this guy, and they seized his devices, jailed him overnight for violating a 1986 Public Order Act. And here again, yes, Amuse says the process was the punishment. So after sharing a photo of himself posing with a legally possessed shotgun, so he was in the when they say when in Rome, act as the Romans do? Well, he acted as an American, availing himself of the right that's allowed to him in this territory. And he was at a Florida shooting range. So he was arrested, locked in a cell overnight. They took him away. And remember, when the state arrests you, that's removing your rights for a period of time, right? They actually hold. If a person did that to you, it would be called, unlawful confinement, kidnapping. That's what it would be. So in this case, in Britain, this is what they did to this person. They also seized his computer and his phone. They wiped out his ability to work. Weeks later, of course, weeks later, all charges were quietly dropped because they were baseless from the start. Critics say the ordeal proves that the UK has turned social media into a surveillance trap where innocent people are punished and processed by process alone. So, can you imagine that what that did to this person in his community? And what if he had a job to go to? He would have to explain to his employer that something happened and that he couldn't go back to work that day. He had to be late because, well, I was arrested because I did something bad. How would you feel about that if that were to happen to you? Is that alarming? Because it should be kind of alarming, right? If that happened where you live, would you kind of what do you think about that? And you have a right to you the rights of a state don't follow you when you go to another state, right? You're allowed to live by the rules under a different territory or state. I don't mean American state. I mean that in terms of a political definition. So if something was legal somewhere and you participated in that thing, for example, let's say if you were smoking marijuana, if you were in Thailand or Singapore, or let's say Singapore, I think weed is illegal there. If you're not allowed to smoke weed in Singapore, and then you went to California, and they have dispensaries on every corner, and you availed yourself of that while you were there, or actually, and it used to be the old school definition would probably be going to the Netherlands, right? Because that was the place, that red light district. Everyone could kind of go there and partake in that, but you wouldn't get arrested when you went home for partaking in that if you took a picture of yourself, smoking weed or engaging in that, and even I guess prostitution at that point. If you took a picture of a brothel and you were hugging, a prostitute, then you don't get arrested for that because it's just you're taking a picture. It doesn't matter. But in the UK, it looks like someone actually was arrested for that, and so super alarming. And what's going on? And the Hodge twin says, "Why are we allies with countries like this?" Can you imagine that? I mean, it used to be that that it was the ultimate England, Britain. It's the ultimate ally. That's who else you're going to align with. These are the people that it's the foundation in some regards that these are your brothers and allies in a sense, and these are supposed to be your philosophical and ideological neighbors. Of course, America departed from that, strictly speaking, but in terms of having other civilized people and civilized nations to deal with, the UK was definitely part of it's part of that brotherhood. So kind of pretty wild. All right, here's let me just see. Here's a video from someone named Wajahat Ali here. Let me just go ahead and play that.
The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. That's the thing with brown people. And I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us, like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us, and we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand, but once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women.
So there you go. There's a a statement from a self-described brown guy, and I guess he's I'm just going to assume he's Indian, and so this is what you're seeing a lot more of. I guess you're seeing a lot of there's a kind of arrogance. It's not, and there's a kind of an irony here. There's like, this person is just talking to, insulting America, and his presence, though, to me, it speaks volumes. He's in America because it is better. He's in America because it's not India, and he stays here for those reasons. And then when you talk about culture and you talk about food, like bland food, that's just it's such a weak, basic kind of aspect to any kind of conversation. America is about man creating things for the betterment of men in general, right? An individual person can have such a great contribution to a culture. Um, man isn't about America isn't about things that you find in nature. It's about man, using what it finds in nature, rearranging them in a interesting and marketable way, and fundamentally different way, so that they can benefit, all people in some kind of way. It's about it's not about, your curry or versus a hamburger. It's not really what it's about. It is the freedom to do, philosophically, the things necessary to advance yourself as a person. And I'd like to say that I think that those things, which this person is completely overlooking, do not exist in the same way where he came from. And they don't exist in the same way, and really in any other country. And so that's what it's important to realize, that it's very extremely disturbing to hear someone talk like that. And they say it's over or you lose, as though there's some kind of game, as though there's some kind of this is where you get into kind of arguments about force and arguments about violence, because there's no losing. I mean, America is supposed to be about everybody winning. You win because you do the right thing. You don't win just because you have an American passport. You win because you had the American passport, which lets you do the things to make you awesome. You made awesome discoveries, awesome inventions, awesome ways of doing things that differentiated you from the things that were possible in any other region in the world. Try doing that in any other country, and you'll find that there are so many unnatural obstacles. You see, man has a way of putting obstacles. Governments have a way of putting obstacles in the way of others, when they should just be free. That's why they call it laissez-faire capitalism, going back to the French Revolution. So it means letting you be free and safe, so that you can be what a person can be in a philosophical sense. And so once you understand that, this person is just talking about sheer numbers of just NPC people, and they are Indian, and therefore they are winning because it's an argument about force at that point. When in America, all our interactions are supposed to be through free choice, and not based on force or violence. And it's not about the quantity of a person; it's about like the quality of the person. And so that's truly unfortunate. I'm going to go ahead and just do a statement here. Unfortunate take by this person, and completely ignores philosophical basis All right. If you're following me now here, I'm not sure if you were on X or on YouTube, but you can go ahead and follow me on X, and you'll see that I'm live right now on X, obviously, and doom scrolling and live tweeting, live posting. And if you could share this wherever you are, I'd appreciate this. If you have anyone who might be interested in this kind of live stream, I think once we get a few more people, we can maybe have a conversation, or we can see where that goes. All right, I'm gonna go back up here. So yeah, follow me on X if you're not on, if you're not already, and of course, if you could subscribe to me on YouTube, I'd appreciate that as well. All right.
Oh no, I'll put it back on her.
I know, but her brother knows that's all.
Oh, he went there. Oh, right. Yeah, she's chilling. Here we go. Oh, there she goes.
All right. Derek Evans says transgender man laying in hospital bed as a newborn baby is handed to him after he paid a surrogate to have a baby for him. I think he means transgender woman. So yeah, some people find that image quite disturbing and unnatural. So obviously, this is not. I have no idea if it's biologically his or not, but interesting times. Of course, a lot of people find this infuriating. All right, let's check this clip out here. All right, here you have someone who apparently is a student. So they're just here from another country. They're on a student visa at University UPenn, and they're leading a crowd and chanting "Globalize the Intifada" and "Free Palestine." Apparently, before they start accosting law enforcement, which we did not see in that video. So again, what's happened in the last decade or two is actually you're not just granting someone from another country to the rights to come to America. What you've done is let them. You're paying for activists to kind of be here, and their statements may or may not be accurate. They may not coincide with the beliefs of the typical American. But in America, you're free to have a perspective that differs with anybody. That's how it's supposed to be. And but is there a net positive or net negative for this? A lot of people like C3 here who quote tweeted this as deport immediately, and just there's a conversation that maybe needs to take place. I don't know about what happens. Should you be allowed to be political when you're here? Should you be stirring the pot when you're here? I don't know. I think you should be kind of grateful that you're here in this system and able to kind of take advantage of it. But I guess as long as the the First Amendment exists and that you should be allowed to say whatever you want. But if you get enough people saying what is philosophically the wrong thing, that is kind of detrimental or like something that will end up in the demise of your country, I don't know. That's something to be thought about as well. Tim D. Nank. Again, here's a shot on the screen right now. You've got just a group of people. And again, a majority of the immigrants, I know at least in Canada, seem to be of Indian descent. And so there were recent news articles about groups of Indian men going into the woods like this and firing off guns. And some of the guns were not actually even you're not allowed to possess the gun in Canada, and so you have them firing rounds of ammunition at trees and into streams, and just discarding casings and things like that. And people are wondering, well, like, what are they preparing for? What's the reason for that? As this is not, for example, this is not typical Canadian behavior. For example, this is not that you never, this would never happen. A group of people filming themselves, in Texas you might see this kind of thing, but in Canada this is completely alarming, and some cases, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of destructive to nature, where you see people kind of shooting trees and disposing of ammunition into streams and stuff like that. So, and this person says, you know why Police Souvien wants white Canadian men and women disarmed, but will say nothing about this, right? So again, there's a criticism that seems to go one way. Let me see what Police Souvien is. Police Souvien. Okay, this is a French account. Okay, there was a mass shooting in Canada in December 6th, 1989, and so this account appears to want to get rid of guns in Canada, and so they are kind of an organization, I guess, that will just keep wanting to not, we don't need to have guns. We want to protect people and not guns, is what it said in French, and so what happens is I guess the account's very critical of gun ownership, and so you would think that this kind of news story would be something that they would want to talk about, because this is a kind of an absurdity. In Canada, it's considered an absurdity, and but the poster here is saying that there's no comment from this group about this, and why? And well, I guess the conclusion that we can draw is because they, apparently, if you're from India, you are above reproach, and because you might be thought of as racist. Yeah, I heard measles is making kind of a comeback in a way. Texas measles strain continues to spread, officials say. And of course, that leaves people to be critical of RFK Jr., making certain decisions about some vaccines, I guess. But I guess Kurt Schlichter says, did anything else happen during that time that might have imported measles back into the United States? And so you have to look at things from a contextual period, right? If that period of time, and again, I don't know exactly what that period of time was, but if there was an influx of people from another area where measles was prevalent, then it might be the case that those people brought in measles. And and if that's the case right now, with all of the influx of immigration, it could be current trends are increasing because of the current influx of migrants, right? So a lot of people, you have your inoculation schedule, you have a schedule where you're getting these vaccines, and so for the most part, we've been kind of free of like these mass diseases in society, up until the pandemic, and then what happens is that you have people. If you import 1 million people who have not had their vaccines, well, there's going to be an increase in certain kinds of diseases, right? And I don't think that's being reported on also in society. You're not seeing that kind of reporting. You're just hearing that there are a measles outbreak, but they won't tell you the breakdown demographically about what that actually is, what that actually means. All right, here's a post from Riley Gaines saying, by the way, the people calling a law enforcement officer being shot in the head, and of course this is in reference to the shooting and killing death of a National Guard ICE person who was in Washington, D.C., who was recently one of 2 people shot, and she died. But what happens is that the mayor of New York, Mamdani, referenced the doing a typical kind of like, oh, we're so sorry for your loss kind of tweet, and but he didn't say we're sorry that this person was murdered, and that these violent thugs should be put away, and we should stop creating a situation where this can happen. He just said, "I'm sorry for the passing," which is a very passive kind of, it wasn't like a natural occurrence, right? If you want to think about things, when you think about things in a philosophical sense, there are things that occur in nature which had to exist. They had no choice but to exist, right? Like, let's just say a tree, for example. The tree met certain conditions over the course of its life, and it had to come into being. The seed that dropped into a specific kind of earth that received a specific kind of moisture within a certain range, and was able to find sustenance through whatever nutrition was in that soil. That had to occur. It wasn't like a choice. But the second category of things in philosophy is when something is man-made, because men are, they are creatures of volition, and things can happen or not happen. And so when a person does a thing, it has a different kind of metaphysical standing. That was a decision that a person made, for better or for worse, whether they were in the right frame of mind or not. We operate on thinking and then deciding. And so when Riley Gaines is saying here that, referencing the fact that Mamdani said that referred to this death as a passing, aren't minimizing the tragedy by accident. That's the kind of language you hear from people who sympathize with terrorists, right? So by saying someone, when your grandmother dies because she was 100 years old, like, I'm sorry she passed, okay? If she was murdered on the street, you wouldn't say, oh, I'm sorry she passed. That's so unfortunate. No, you must identify the cause of it because you want to eliminate it in the future. Was it, whether you agree with this person philosophically or not, I think most Americans and most people in general would agree that you don't have the right to make that call on your own. It's not your decision to make. You don't, though there's a system of law that's supposed to exist where you get to say that you're upset about something. And if that person specifically did something wrong to you, then you have a chance to kind of have that rectified. We don't get to walk on the street and do what we want to do, and take the law into our own hands. That, in that sense, right? That's robbing a person of their existence, and it's not fair at all. And so it's not very innocent to do that. When a politician says something, often they kind of choose their words carefully, and so he has a base he has to appease, and at the same time he would look insensitive if he didn't say anything. So by calling it a passing, like, just kind of it's insulting, because it wasn't just this event. The event had a name, and a certain kind of person or mindset is responsible for the creation of that situation. All right. And yesterday, the Tom Fitton says shut it down, and he's referring to the, I guess, immigration in some kind of way. So the White House posted this yesterday, apparently from the Nationality Act, Section 212F. Quote, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, not Congress, he gets to decide, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be inappropriate. So I guess with the shooting that occurred in DC, the nationality of the shooter, I guess, was Afghani, and there's a whole history there about what happened with the shooter. Came like in 2021, and even got to stay in like a multi-million-dollar home, and was kind of with a family here who kind of in millionaire family in the United States, and even they started a GoFundMe for this guy, and he has 5 kids, but apparently he was in some kind of service militarily or in a police sense in Afghanistan. But the values don't align, or the certain kind of psychology does not align, and you can't just kind of import a person and think that they are going to be American and have the same kind of root values, the foundational values that you have, right? This is not a unique story. Things like this, it's happening more and more, and so I guess the White House and the president are going to take some kind of action to maybe stop that. Now, there are some people who would think that immigration should be paused, for like a decade. Let's just, or indefinitely, let's just stop it right now and do a kind of like an America reset on this kind of thing. Get adjusted and realigned and get the ship moving in kind of a quote unquote more normal sense. All right, here's a see on the screen is a screenshot of the front page of the Toronto Sun for Sunday, November 30th, and there's a person in handcuffs there with their hands behind their back, and it says, "Terror teens, radicalized young men increasingly turning to violence, authorities warn." And it's getting, it is getting bad out there on some level. I got to tell you, I'm someone who does a regular kind of walk in my community. And this past summer, I was accosted several times, and these people were on like e-bikes. They were like, I have headphones on, and I'm just keeping to myself, and I do a walk a certain time of the day. And there are people who like intentionally try to actually hit me with their bike, and so these are young people, and not too young. They're not like 10 years old or anything, but these are people that are 17, 16, 18, driving up and down the areas on their e-bikes, and just essentially harassing people that come by. I'm seeing more and more of this, and there are groups on Facebook for your community as well, right? Your community might even have one if you live in some kind of, depending on your community, maybe you're in suburbia, maybe you're on the a specific borough or specific area in your city or state, and there are community groups. There are often moms and community people that post interesting stories that go on in your community, and we see this more and more where like certain communities are posting images of, because of all the doorbell cameras, people are posting images of different acts of criminality and antisociality among teenagers in those groups. And it's beyond me why they would even do that, knowing they're going to be on camera. I mean, it's insane, but it reaches a fevered pitch. And you obviously, if you're on X, you've probably seen videos of teens being violent in one way or another. And it happens in schools, it happens in buses. You see these swarms of people kind of taking over malls, and just going in and robbing stores. And it's an epidemic, and it's not talked about as much as it should be. You see it on X. It's not as anomalous as people make it out to be. I think the mainstream media doesn't do a good job at talking about it, only when it meets certain criteria for interest, I guess. So. But anyway, we're seeing more and more of that. They just say radicalized young men, and I don't know in the actual story if they're talking about a specific demographic. Is it just young men in general, or is it is there another demographic? Are there certain groups, perhaps newcomers to the country, that are kind of frustrated and emboldened ideologically to act out in a certain kind of way? This is the kind of story for sure I see a lot of. All right. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. Here we are. We are on New York Post. And successful as statist says she's now 53 and lonely because she forgot to have kids, living a busy life. And so we're seeing a lot of this. What's happened, I guess, through ultimately because of feminism, is that people were given a certain narrative, right? That you, especially with the advent of the birth control pill, that you can just go have fun and have a good time, do what you need to do. You're in control, right? You're a boss, bitch. You're in control. You are so fierce. You can do anything you want, and of course, you can do this, and there's not going to be any consequences. You're just in control. You're having a grand old time. You're like one of the guys. You get to do all the things a guy can do, and a lot of people lived that way, ultimately fostering an anti-man kind of sentiment. And they find themselves, after going through their childbearing years, trying to be a boss bitch, and time has passed them by. They're no longer, they've had a great many short-term experiences. Some might, in some measures, that's actually a psychopathic characteristic. Short-term relationships, many short-term relationships. I know many of you watching this will probably, you're aware of people. They start asking, what's your body count? So the body count could maybe be a measure of how much quote unquote fun you maybe had during your time. But they wake up and they're in their 40s or 50s and they're like, oh shit, I just forgot to have kids. And I don't even have a long-term partner. And maybe that's not even a value anymore. And now you find yourself in your 40s and 50s and you're, what they say, ran through and without a partner. And life is, some people think that's super tragic. You're going to find yourself when you're sick, no one's there for you. And you have no intimate bond that you've shared with another person over an extended period of time. I mean, if you're in your 50s and you all of a sudden meet your quote unquote life partner, there's a certain kind of intimacy, I can tell you, when you're with someone for a long period of time, that's a very, very special and unique and doesn't happen overnight. And so a lot of women are finding themselves in a situation where that's not the case. And so maybe they've had a career, maybe they've had a great many short-term relationships, but that's it. So the post is saying that today many women are foregoing old-fashioned traditions like getting married or having kids for various reasons. And it's not today. You're seeing the consequences of it today. They were starting to do that in the 80s and 90s. However, one Gen X woman opened up in a series of TikTok videos about her decision to not start a family and how it affects her today. Nadia Becker, 53 years old. Okay, it's definitely Gen Xer. And so she grew up in the mostly as a child in the 70s, and then as an adult in the a teen in 20s in the 80s, and then probably in her 30s in the as she was rounding out the millennium, in her mid 30s around the millennium, so around the 2000 mark. So she's an award-winning beauty expert and the founder of a company, but known for her skin care tips and tricks. In a slew of videos she posted right before the holiday, she said she forgot to have kids. I knew I didn't want children, but by the time it got to the point where I should have had them with my then partner, it was too late for me. Becker mentioned how she loves children and is the mother to an adorable fur baby. Okay, so she's got a cat or dog. But this time of year stirs up feelings of emptiness and loneliness inside of her. And I just want to say, I can't understate how tragic that is. That's such a freaking tragedy that you can't go back ever. And you don't even know it, and you might not even think about it like this. But your government is actually responsible for creating that sentiment and having you think of making those choices. You were likely ideologically compromised at some point, right? You got a certain narrative beat into you about boss bitch and you're fierce and go live your life just for you in the most selfish context. And sometimes selfish is good, absolutely, especially in America. But you got to do your thing. But there's a certain tragedy that is unfolding with this, is that people wake up and it's like a certain death. You can't undo that. You can't go back in time. You can't have that kid. And she's saying here that, but that doesn't take away from how this time of year makes her feel. Quote, "It gets lonely between Christmas and New Year's," she remarked, especially when everything is centered around family and children. So in a follow-up video, she mentioned how not having children never really bothered her until she got into her 50s. Am I going to be left alone and eaten by cats and no one knows where I'm gone? Knows I'm gone? Have I made the right life choice? So now she's questioning it. And, I'd like to see some enlightenment and some insight into why. Is she thinking that she just randomly made this choice on her own and then, oh, I just happened to find myself here? If she's a Gen Xer, she was bombarded with commercials, information, other feminists, maybe what is it, first wave feminists telling her to abandon that. She didn't just wake up, because it's not necessarily normal, right? It's typical. If you're a living being in here, and as social creatures, we usually kind of get together and have children and something. This kind of message was drilled into her, and she kind of, it seems like, message received for her. And she would benefit with maybe kind of making that connection and go, I was bamboozled. I was kind of brainwashed into one thing over another, and now this is gone. Because where did this? All of a sudden, she wakes up without kids, and her life is done. Am I going to be left alone and eaten by cats? Is that what Is that what it is now? So she eventually got married in her 30s, which is kind of late for a lot of compared to traditional kind of folks. Because you're kind of pushing it already. You should have, maybe in a traditional sense, you would have had kids maybe in your early 20s. She feels she was a bit late to a partner who wanted children, but she couldn't get pregnant. Okay. She elaborated that when she, quote, forgot to have children, that she meant by that is that she was busy creating a life that wasn't a priority of hers, but actually, she actually wanted a family. So what she's saying here, she meant by that is that she was busy creating a life, and that becoming a mother wasn't a priority of hers. Okay. But actually, I wanted the family. I wanted that kind of warmth and love and that support network around me, but just never happened for me. That is so, so sad. And it is horrible that that happens. And if you're watching this now, I hope that does not happen to you. I hope you're not living a life where that you let that happen, and that's the time has passed you by. So in any case, I'm just going to end the stream here, just doing a few of these random kind of doom scrolling and live tweeting. If you're just watching this now on a replay, or if you're watching this now, I see there's been 2 people here. I don't know if there's a YouTube people or whatever. If you're not, if you're actual human beings, then please give me a follow on X and give me a follow on YouTube, and we'll maybe try to slowly build something here if we can. So everyone have a great day. Pray tell. Bye for now.